Hey, and we back with another video. First things first, like we've done every single video around here, I want to thank everyone who watched the last one, left a like, left a comment. Even if you just watched 1 second of any of my videos, I'd appreciate it, and I thank you all. I think my last video is at 25 views, and I appreciate everyone who's checked it out. I appreciate everyone who liked it, whether you left a like or whether you watched it and you're like, I like this video, but I'm just not gonna leave it, you know. I appreciate it, and I hope that everyone has been enjoying my content. There's more content to come. I hope to get some content out faster than normal. Yeah, I want to get straight into this one. Thank you all again for the continuous support on the channel so far, and I hope to keep it up and continue to provide you all with good content. Let's get straight into this one. As many of you all know, I like anime. Some of my friends have even considered me a weeb of some sort, which that's crazy. But for a kid who's watched anime for a couple years, I've seen my fair share of anime, actually to the point where I've seen, I'd say, a very unhealthy amount of it. But when it comes to the medium of anime and what makes it so special, at least to me in comparison to the other forms of media that I've watched, regular live action movies, even Western animation, the difference between anime that I tend to see and these other art forms, with the exception of books, just when it comes to visual watching media, tends to be the emphasis on individual character themes within a certain series or within a certain genre. These character archetypes and these character themes are very emphasized, at least in the shonen demographic of anime, as a lot of these anime are built upon the shoulders of whether you like their characters or whether the characters are written well or not. I'd say that Naruto was a show that for the most part, although the arcs and the story is very good for a majority of Naruto, we're not going to talk about the war arc. We're not going to talk about that here. The main selling point of Naruto is the characters. You fall in love with Sasuke, or you fall in love with Naruto, or you love Kakashi, or Obito, or Madara, and the hype for him, or you fall in love with the lore characters of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, or just other characters throughout the entirety of the history of Naruto. You fall in love with the characters, and therefore you grow a connection with those guys, and you keep watching, and you watch for 700 episodes. Jesus Christ. But the point still stands that I believe that anime, more than other forms of media, focuses and likes to delve into the character writing and specifically the individual characteristic themes of each character more than other forms of media, I'd say. The characterization in most anime, especially the shonen, like I mentioned, that I've watched, is immaculate, especially when you go to series like I mentioned, Naruto. Mob Psycho 100 is one that I can think of that has amazing individual character writing. FMAB, which is widely renowned as one of the greatest anime of all time, has very distinct and individual character themes that mean different things from character to character, with each person having their own individual goals and their own individual themes that help carry the series as a whole. One main anime that I want to focus on for this individual character theme analysis that we have today is My Hero Academia, and the character that I want to specifically take a look at today is Hitoshi Shinso. Now, to all you My Hero Academia incels and you Twitter finger nerds, I'm not going to be talking about any ships. I'm not going to be talking about any of your fan fictions, any of your dojins, any of your hentai of these children in this series, okay? So if you're a creep like that, you can leave. The exit's over there. There's actually a door right behind me. You can go out that way. But I want to delve into, not going into the manga, of course, but I will be talking about things that are up to date to this day, according to the anime, which is, I think, a little bit past the joint training arc and delving into the My Villain Academia arc at this moment. Now, the first time we meet Shinso, it's not that much of a memorable opening. We meet him before the sports festival in the My Hero Academia season 2, I do believe, and I think we meet him a little bit before, but his first introduction to us as a bona fide character that we should actually care about is his argument or just conversation with 1A, but more specifically Bakugo. You know, he's the loudest, he's the most prideful, and he's gonna put in his 2 cents. And they got in a little kerfuffle, if you want to call it that, when they were about to go out for the sports training arc, as Bakugo was kind of talking shit, saying, hey, I don't really need to worry about you guys because I'm gonna beat the fuck out of all of you. And Shinso basically clap back with, well, you don't know who I am. So that's not the most memorable opening, but it's in the anime. It was something, it was highlighted that Shinso was not necessarily afraid to talk to someone like Bakugo. I feel like that is the first clue in that Shinso is gonna be a more important character than the characters that we've met that weren't in 1A previous to this. As up to this point in season 2, we haven't really met too many people outside of 1A, and all those people don't really matter to begin with. So for Shinso to have this altercation with Bakugo and the way that's presented in the anime, I feel like it's a clue in that, hey, we should actually give a fuck about this guy. Now, if you've watched any bit of My Hero Academia and looked at Shinso's character design, and you are also an avid comic reader of Marvel Comics, you would know that Shinso's appearance, his quirk, and his whole design basically is very inspired by a guy called the Purple Man, aka Kilgrave from Marvel Comics. And I think he was even in the Jessica Jones Netflix show, if I'm not mistaken. And if you were able to connect these two, you would know that Kilgrave is not the best person in the comics. He gives off a very brooding vibe, and not really brooding, I don't think that's the word, but a very weary vibe of, hey, this guy is clearly kind of bad with the purple hair and the demeanor and all that. And Shinso is very reminiscent of him and very inspired by his character design by Kilgrave. So if you were able to draw this parallel, then looking at Shinso, you were probably weary of his character from the start. And I'd say even if you didn't make that parallel, as I know many of you don't read Marvel Comics as much as I do, then you can still look at Shinso's character design and come away with the fact that he's supposed to be drawn like this and he's done like this to give a certain vibe to the watcher or the reader. And that vibe is supposed to be, hey, this guy is a kid, sure, and he wants to be a hero, but he looks kind of creepy. He doesn't look like he is the best and I can say that's by design, clearly. Now, fast forwarding a little bit in the My Hero story, in the middle of Shinso and Deku's fight, for some reason they wait until after Shinso gets his ass flipped, literally by the way, to show us his backstory, a little bit of it, and just a quick flashback to when he was in middle school, and I think is when he first developed his powers of brainwashing. And we can see that Shinso's friends automatically jump to the conclusion, hearing upon, you know, his new brainwashing quirk, that, oh, that would be great for a bad guy, that would be great for a villain, that would be amazing to manipulate people and take control of people and make them do bad things. And they even make a joking remark to not do it to them in the future. But the thing about Shinso is that he's heard things like this his whole life. As we, the audience, also assumed at first glance with his character design, the characters in universe also assumed when learning about his quirk or even just looking at him that this kid could be bad news. His quirk is brainwashing. Brainwashing isn't something that's held to a high regard when it comes to heroism. Name a hero off the top of your head whose power is brainwashing. From anything, not just My Hero, not just anime, but from anything that's the quote-unquote good guy of the story. And it seems as though that's the case for most of the people in the My Hero universe as well, as Shinso's entire quirk-filled life has been consumed by people making these assumptions about him that he's evil. An evil 16-year-old kid is crazy enough, but in this world of everyone having a superpower, the ones that stand out are the ones that seem the most evil. Now, one other thing in the world of My Hero Academia that I feel like I should acknowledge is the fact that in this world of superpowered people, about, I think, 98% of the world in this anime has some sort of superpower or enhancement. Some are apparently physical and some are pretty deep under the skin, as they're just more biological enhancements more than they are physical alterations. So we can see it with someone like even Deku to an extent, where his one for all power is really just activated by him and it's not ever present on his body. And as we learn through different arcs in the anime, most of the villains that exist in this world are really just people who we learn to have been wronged by society, or pre-established expectations upon them due to their quirk or due to their altered appearance, place them in situations to where they fall into a life of villainy. Now, of course, you have some people that are just genuinely bad people, and you have some people who, like Stain, see something wrong with society and with their deranged brain somehow decide that it's up to them to fix it by becoming this villain of sorts, or a hero killer as Stain is known as. But for most of the villains in the My Hero Academia world, these are just people who, like Shinso has been at a very young age, have been misunderstood or just had expectations placed upon them due to things that are outside of their control, and they later fall into those expectations. Now, before we get too into anime talk right now, I want to tie this back to real life, as in real life, I'm sure that most of you all are aware of expectations or just misconceptions and generalizations of different peoples and different communities. And as we know, especially in regards to things like crime, a lot of these expectations come to overgeneralize the types of people in these environments and communities. Let me explain a little bit more. Sometimes you have someone who vaguely fits a certain type of community or a certain type of expectation that you might have for that person. And due to the fact that you have that expectation now, sometimes you can have someone that vaguely fits a description of a certain stereotype that you may have, especially in regards to crime or in poor communities. Like someone can fit the mold of being, okay, they're black, okay, they wear Jordans, okay, they come home at 7:30 from basketball practice, presumably, and they live in these apartments in Hiram Clark. And based off of that assumption, you can be like, oh, okay, well, they probably have an absentee father, if they even if they had a father at all at the start, and they might lead to a line of crime or drugs. Those are assumptions. They're assumptions that are based off of numbers, sure, but they're still assumptions. It's still a hypothesis. And a lot of the times these hypotheses or expectations, especially when vocalized to the actual person, turn out to be more destructive than they are prohibiting. You see, a lot of the times, especially when you tell younger people, or when the younger people have these expectations, especially if they're not positive expectations, even if they are positive expectations, a lot of times these people end up either growing to be exactly like those expectations, or they try to meet them and they fall so short. Now, when it comes to this in real life, we know all too well of how people in very destructive environments, as they grow as people, end up becoming and fitting into those exact same environments even when they try to grow past it. This is shown in how many people are in poor communities that just keep adding to the gang violence, that just keep adding to bodies that we have in prison, that just keep adding into the criminals that we have on the streets, into the drugs that are sold in that community, because these experiences and these expectations on these people by outside forces, oh, you're poor, oh, you live in an apartment, oh, you live in this area, that's a bad neighborhood, you're a bad person, you're gonna be just like those other people. And what happens? 20 years go by and you slinging that same dope that your uncle was doing. It's sad to see, but that's just the reality that we live in. And we can see how these expectations change and sometimes just mold people into these things that they didn't have to become. If these expectations that have nothing to do with them, that 12-year-old didn't buy that house, Shinso didn't pick his quirk, but because of the expectations aligned onto him based off of preconceived notions of other people, he now has an accelerated potential to fulfill those same expectations due to a misconception that someone had and an overgeneralization that they placed on a 16-year-old kid. That happens in the real world all the time, where expectations and overgeneralization and misconception leads to people just becoming the cycle and fitting into something that they should have never been a part of to begin with. And in My Hero Academia, this is how villains get created. Clearly bad people, clearly people with either bad intentions or bad motives that end up doing these horrible things. But in real life, it's not always as simple as that. Some people, it just ends up being another person that didn't graduate high school, and now they have to bounce around from retail job to fast food job to maybe a slight management job, but never escaping that $30,000 a year that the environment that they're in is the cap to. That happens all the time. And in other ways, it leads to drug dealers, it leads to gangbangers, it leads to violence, it leads to a bunch of things that I have no idea what happens in those communities, because I've been in a very fortunate position to where I don't have to experience that. But I'm sure many of you have either been yourself or have people that you love and care about that have also been in those situations. And it's sad to see, but that's what those expectations do. That's what those overgeneralizations lead to, and that's what those misconceptions can turn someone into over time. Now, back to Shinso, we can see that despite all these expectations placed on him as soon as he got his quirk at a young age, he himself has zero inclination and zero desire to become a villain. Aside from his not friendly nature, which we can see in the show is very common when it comes to heroes, and they're still heroes and not villains, although they may be morally questionable outside of their hero work, like someone like Endeavor, who's a great character, but a bad person. So this shows Shinso's ever-present desire to just not fall in line with these misconceptions that have been placed on him, but that's not to say that it doesn't impact him. As he loses to Deku, the one thing that's on his mind is the flashback that we see that serves as his backstory. And then we see how his classmates in the Class 1C, which is a general studies course, are overhearing some of the heroes say, oh, despite his looks, this guy's a hero, this guy's a fighter. UA made a big mistake not putting this guy in the hero course because he is a hero, and I want him on the battlefield with us. You see, the beauty behind Shinso's character, at least to me, is his representation in the show basically being for those people who have those lofty expectations of failing or just falling short of what they want placed upon them. Shinso's theme is one of overcoming the barriers of stereotypes. It's one that's about overcoming the barriers of what your appearance says about you. It's one that says that he is going to dictate what he does with his life and with his gifts, the same ones that other people may misjudge or misunderstand, but it's one that he is going to use to his fullest potential to reach the goals that he has set for himself. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you liked the video and want to see more like this. And I'll see y'all next time. Have a good day. It's the after credits scene. I'm leaving all this in, by the way. All this dead space, you're gonna see it. I mentioned anime quite a bit in some of these videos. I like anime quite a bit. I'd say I've watched a very unhealthy amount of anime. I think I even said that in the main part of the video. But My Hero is one that's very interesting to me. Even though it's not one of my favorite anime, not even like ongoing anime, it's not even one of my favorites. It's not even like top 10 ongoing anime for me. But it's a very interesting show, and I feel like the society that it portrays and the themes that it has with its characters and represents are very good lessons for people to learn, and very good. It's a very good mirror of what we have in real life. And for me, Shinso is one of my favorite characters in the series. Despite me not liking the series that much, some of the characters in the series are very much standouts to me. Endeavor is one, Shinso is another. Even early parts of Todoroki, I really like those three. They really stand out as like their themes portrayed in the series are very much relatable to me, at least to different people in my life, in real life, and just different aspects of society that I think are very interesting to look at. And I want to take a look at that with Shinso, as I think that his the burden that he carries with the stereotypes that he has fit into in the world of My Hero Academia are very interesting to look at. I hope that you guys feel the same. For those of you who have watched the series, I really like his character. I hope that you all, even the ones that haven't seen My Hero, I hope that I gave a good enough description of him and the series as a whole in order for you to understand everything. But aside from that, yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. Again, maybe 2 of you who watched this far. And yeah, that's it from me. Peace.